being associated with 11th International Conference on Restructuring of the Global Economy in University of Oxford, UK. My paper title is Skill and Vocational Educational in the Socio-Economic Development of Rural Youth in India, an Empirical Study. So I am Dr. Vidhu Gaur from Management Development Institute, Gurgaon, India. I'm MDI Gurgaon. And now I will begin with the introduction as to what this paper is all about. So vocational education training, that is VET, is an essential part of country's educational strategy. Both quantitative and qualitative techniques and research methodology are used in this case, in this research paper. The present paper is a small attempt to describe and see overall skill and vocational education system and its impact on rural youth in India using qualitative and quantitative research techniques. A descriptive study approach was used to assess the thought process, degree of awareness, and perception of skill-based training among a chosen population. Because education is widely regarded as the most effective weapon for development, our government is attempting to educate almost all individuals, particularly those in the rural regions, via a vast vocational education initiative. The concept is that via education, unskilled employees will become skilled, farmers and peasants will be taught in new crops and will be able to adopt new agricultural practices and educated people will develop strategies for self-employment after learning new methods and skills. If I go to the next slide, it talks about the background. So let me just give a brief overview about the background. In India, vocational education refers to the officially supported vocationalization of secondary education program, which offers vocational courses in grades 11 and 12. 1976-77 was when the vocational education program, VEP, was launched to improve vocational training in the public institutions, education institutions. It was recommended that the country's vocational education program be expanded by National Working Group on Vocationalization of Education. Because of vocationalization of secondary education, there are many recommendations which were passed, which began in 1988. Its recommendations were put into action. Let me explain what were the recommendations. Its goal is to improve the individual's employability, eliminate gap between the demand for the supply of trained labor, and provide an alternative for individuals pursuing higher education without special motivation or purpose. The Ministry of Human Resources Development oversees vocational education, MHRD. It is called MHRD. Vocational education in India is coordinated by All India Council of Vocational Education, which is a part of Ministry of Human Resource Development, again MHRD. State Council carries similar duties of vocational education. Let me go to the next slide. Also, let me talk about the program's effectiveness. When we talk about vocational skill education, the program's effectiveness should be assessed in the same terms as its justification in the job market. However, there are just a handful of assessments that enables this. And what are they? Let us get a deep overview. Let us get a brief overview of that. National education initiatives include VET, that is vocational and skill education, as a vital part of the process. To reap the benefits of India's demographic dividend, changing national contexts need to redefine the fundamental features of vocational education and training to make them more flexible, current, relevant, inclusive, and innovative. The government has already taken several critical measures in vocational education. This paper aims to study the effectiveness of these initiatives. What are the various reports that are being consulted? Let me name some. NSDA, as a part of the 12th five-year plan, it controls and coordinates the activities of both the government and private sector to meet the skilling objective. Second report is Sector Skill Councils, which is called SSCS, are joint ventures between public and private sectors With SSCS, industry training standards are established and aid the capacity growth. This will ensure that training provided is consistent and that the skills learned are easily transferable. Third, National Vocational Education Qualification Framework, NVEQF, which was just announced by polytechnics, engineering schools, and other educational establishments all around the nation. After the 7th year, students will complete a 7-level certification program in several vocational training subjects, culminating in a degree. Next, secondary and vocational education alignment. Through several entrance and departure points and flexibility in picking modules, this project, in combination with NVEQF, gives more mobility to students. Since its inception, this program has benefited around 1 million students in several different institutions. The PPM model, the PPP model, it suggests that ITIs, basically 1,396 industrial training institutes, which are called ITIs by Directorate General of Employment and Training in 2007-08. Impact assessment study of socio-economic development programs, a Himachal Pradesh case study, was also conducted for this particular research. Let me now tell you the objective part. What is the objective? The present work is a small attempt to analyze the impact of skill initiatives and vocational education undertaken by Government of India and its impact on rural youth in India so far about to increase the level of employment. Let me talk about the methodology. A combination of, again, quantitative and qualitative methods was used in this particular research paper. A descriptive study has been used to examine how a particular group of people thinks about, feels about, and perceives skill-based training. A descriptive study collects data without altering the surrounding environment in any way. Descriptive research includes researchers' engagement with participants and conducting surveys on interviews to acquire the essential information. Let me talk about primary data. To acquire primary data, a survey is being done using a questionnaire. A survey is an excellent method. I need not talk about it. So it's, of course, primary research tool. A customized structured questionnaire has been employed to extract the respondents' demographic status, current occupational level, and awareness of government skill programs and skill-oriented training. Those who participated in different skill-based programs were also asked about their attitudes towards and the engagement in this kind of training and their social and economic standing. Let me talk about secondary data. Before using secondary data, it is necessary to analyze the data itself, particularly to draw attention towards the given terminology like measurement inaccuracy, source bias, dependability, and period. In this study, the help of census surveys of 2011 and prior years together with different data accessible by government websites has been employed in this particular research. So the sample size, primarily we have chosen 500 random samples of the youth and circulated the questionnaire to them. The questionnaire was validated and reliability tested. Some of the questions were whether they got employable skills, were salaries incommensurate with the industry standards, whether the saving could be done with their earnings, whether the skill development was continuous and commensurate with the evolving techniques, technology, and market demand, whether the skill developed has enabled them to find jobs in rural or urban areas. So we have done primary research applying parametric statistical methods, that is chi-square test or goodness of fit test. Out of 500 responses, we eliminated wrong, inappropriate, and finally ended up analyzing 350 responses. And so we applied chi-square. Next slide, findings. If I talk about findings, Skilling has positively impacted the trained individuals in terms of finding jobs. Then there is a disparity in gender when it comes to skill training. With the statistics is mentioned on the screen, this can be attributed to the nature of jobs. Surveyed population falls into three distinct age groups: 18 to 21, 19.14%, 22 to 24 years, 66%, and 25 to 30 years, 14.85%. 74.8% of the total sample respondents were primarily educated. This group comprises mostly of males. 21.7% of the total respondents have an education level up to 12th standard. A very small number of the total sample is graduate or equivalent level. Let me talk about the conclusive part. The study carries out and signifies the effects produced so far by vocational training on the employability level of youth. The focus was also on seeing the profound effect on the overall socio-economic conditions of selected sample that were produced by training related to certain skills. The sphere of vocational education has developed its own ecosystem of private and public funded training programs for the needful candidates. The whole cycle of center setup mobilizations, training, certification, placement has brought a productive change in the rollout figures, especially in the quality of skilled individuals. The Indian state governments are running parallel skill development missions and are incorporating training per standard norms defined by the central agency for implementing vocational education program. There are some suggestions. So, just a second. Yeah, so some suggestions. Skill development is a complex initiative for providers as well as takers. Skill sets vary with the educational qualification, aptitude, and attitude of the person undertaking who wants to possess the skill. In the process of imparting, transferring the skill, these aspects are often overlooked and misunderstood by both the providers as well as the receivers. The resultant effect is that skills are not transferred as desired, and quality of the final product, the person trained in particular skill, doesn't yield the expected benefits. It is therefore suggested that before start of any skill development initiative, a thorough and serious homework to be carried out, which is as follows. So, selection of beneficiaries. Before start of any skill development initiative training program, the following work can be carried out: detailed survey of the beneficiary, their family background, occupation, monthly income of the family, saving pattern, if any, family members' education level in the family, school dropouts, reason for dropouts, etc. Once this is done, the beneficiary can be separated and then a brief counseling session to be carried out with beneficiary as well as the parents. The beneficiary to be probed on their need for skill training. The role of service provider. The role of service provider, the skill imparting agency, in this is the identification and selection of the right proper beneficiary, plan the skill training as per interest of the beneficiary and as per the market demand. Impart training as per the level of identified beneficiary, not as per the pre-designed course content. Changes are to be incorporated into the training methodology, time and duration, etc. So that's all. Yeah, that's all. I'm done. So this was the last line. Okay. So that's all from my side. Thank you.